Officer Marcus Rodriguez sat in his patrol car outside the 24-hour gas station on Main Street. The clock on his dashboard showed 11:30 p.m. It had been a quiet Friday night in Millbrook, which was unusual. Most Friday nights brought at least 3 or 4 calls about drunk drivers, bar fights, or domestic problems. But tonight was different. The radio had been mostly silent except for the usual check-ins from other officers. Marcus took a sip of his coffee and looked around the empty parking lot. The gas station clerk waved at him through the window. Marcus waved back. He had been working this beat for 5 years now, and he knew almost everyone in town. Millbrook was not a big place. Only about 15,000 people lived there. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's business. Marcus liked working the night shift. It was usually quieter than the day shift, and he could spend more time actually helping people instead of writing traffic tickets. He had joined the police force because he wanted to make a difference in his community. His father had been a police officer too, and he had always looked up to him. The radio crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. "Unit 23, we have a call for you," said the dispatcher. Her name was Sarah, and she had been working dispatch for 10 years. Marcus knew her voice well. "Unit 23 here, go ahead," Marcus replied, reaching for his radio. "We have a report of a drunk and disorderly person at Murphy's Tavern on 2nd Street. Caller says there's a man causing problems in the parking lot. He's bothering customers and won't leave when asked." Marcus sighed. Murphy's Tavern was a popular bar in downtown Millbrook. It was usually busy on Friday nights, and sometimes people drank too much. This was probably just another drunk person who needed to be sent home safely. "Copy that. I'm about 5 minutes away," Marcus said into the radio. "Be advised, backup is not available. Unit 15 is handling a domestic violence call on the south side of town, and Unit 8 is dealing with a car accident on Highway 12. "Understood." "I can handle it alone," Marcus replied. He had dealt with drunk people many times before. Most of them were not dangerous, just confused and loud. Marcus started his patrol car and drove toward 2nd Street. As he drove, he thought about the call. Murphy's Tavern was owned by an old Irish man named Patrick Murphy. Patrick ran a good business and usually called the police only when he really needed help. If Patrick or one of his staff called about someone causing trouble, it was probably serious. The drive to Murphy's Tavern took Marcus through the heart of downtown Millbrook. Most of the shops were closed for the night. Only a few restaurants and bars were still open. The streetlights cast long shadows on the empty sidewalks. A few people walked along the streets, probably heading home from dinner or drinks. Marcus turned onto 2nd Street and saw Murphy's Tavern ahead. It was a brick building that had been there for over 50 years. The neon sign in the window flickered slightly, advertising different brands of beer. There were about 15 cars in the parking lot, which was normal for a Friday night. As Marcus pulled into the parking lot, he could see a group of people standing near the front door of the bar. They looked like they were watching something. Marcus parked his patrol car near the entrance and got out. He could hear someone shouting, but he could not see who it was yet. Marcus walked toward the group of people. As he got closer, he could see a man in a dark suit stumbling around near a black sedan. The man was clearly drunk. He was swaying back and forth and having trouble standing up straight. His suit looked expensive, but it was wrinkled and dirty. "Evening, folks. What's going on here?" Marcus asked the group of people who were watching. A young woman with blonde hair stepped forward. She looked scared. "That man has been yelling at everyone who tries to leave," she said, pointing at the drunk man. "He won't let us get to our car. We're afraid he might hurt someone." Marcus looked at the drunk man more carefully. He appeared to be in his 50s with gray hair that was messy and uncombed. His tie was loose and his shirt was untucked. The man was holding onto the side mirror of the black sedan to keep from falling down. "Has he hurt anyone or threatened anyone?" Marcus asked. "Not exactly," said a young man standing next to the blonde woman. "But he's been very aggressive. He called my girlfriend some bad names when we tried to walk past him. And he grabbed her arm when she tried to ignore him." Marcus nodded. This was clearly a situation that needed his attention. Public intoxication was against the law, and if the man was bothering other people, Marcus would need to do something about it. "Okay, I'll handle this. You folks can go ahead and leave if you want," Marcus said to the group. Marcus walked toward the drunk man. As he got closer, he could smell the alcohol. The man reeked of whiskey and beer. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was having trouble focusing on anything. "Sir, I'm Officer Rodriguez with the Millbrook Police. I need to talk to you," Marcus said in a calm, professional voice. The drunk man turned around slowly. He squinted at Marcus as if he was having trouble seeing clearly. "What do you want?" The man slurred. His words were hard to understand. "I've received a complaint that you're bothering other customers here. I need you to calm down and tell me what's going on," Marcus said. The drunk man laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. It was bitter and angry. "You don't know who you're talking to, do you?" he said, pointing a shaky finger at Marcus. "No, sir, I don't. But right now I need you to step away from these cars and calm down. You're scaring people, and that's not okay." The drunk man's face turned red with anger. "I own this town," he shouted. "You can't tell me what to do." "I'll have your job." Marcus had heard this kind of talk before from drunk people. They often claimed to be more important than they really were when they had been drinking. Sometimes they said they were lawyers or politicians or business owners. Most of the time they were just regular people who had too much to drink. "Sir, I don't care who you think you are. Right now you're drunk in public and bothering other people. That's against the law. I need you to cooperate with me so we can solve this problem peacefully." The drunk man stepped closer to Marcus. His breath smelled terrible, like he had been drinking for hours. "You listen to me, you little punk," he said, his voice getting louder. "I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to listen to anyone." Marcus could see that this situation was getting worse. The man was becoming more aggressive, and there were still innocent people in the parking lot who could get hurt. Marcus knew he needed to take control of the situation before someone got injured. Officer Marcus Rodriguez sat in his patrol car outside the 24-hour gas station on Main Street. The clock on his dashboard showed 11:30 p.m. It had been a quiet Friday night in Millbrook, which was unusual. Most Friday nights brought at least 3 or 4 calls about drunk drivers, bar fights, or domestic problems. But tonight was different. The radio had been mostly silent except for the usual check-ins from other officers. Marcus took a sip of his coffee and looked around the empty parking lot. The gas station clerk waved at him through the window. Marcus waved back. He had been working this beat for 5 years now, and he knew almost everyone in town. Millbrook was not a big place. Only about 15,000 people lived there. It was the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's business. Marcus liked working the night shift. It was usually quieter than the day shift, and he could spend more time actually helping people instead of writing traffic tickets. He had joined the police force because he wanted to make a difference in his community. His father had been a police officer too, and he had always looked up to him. The radio crackled to life, interrupting his thoughts. "Unit 23, we have a call for you," said the dispatcher. Her name was Sarah, and she had been working dispatch for 10 years. Marcus knew her voice well. "Unit 23 here, go ahead," Marcus replied, reaching for his radio. "We have a report of a drunken, disorderly person at Murphy's Tavern on 2nd Street. Caller says there's a man causing problems in the parking lot. He's bothering customers and won't leave when asked." Marcus sighed. Murphy's Tavern was a popular bar in downtown Millbrook. It was usually busy on Friday nights, and sometimes people drank too much. This was probably just another drunk person who needed to be sent home safely. "Copy that. I'm about 5 minutes away," Marcus said into the radio. "Be advised, backup is not available. Unit 15 is handling a domestic violence call on the south side of town, and Unit 8 is dealing with a car accident on Highway 12. "Understood. I can handle it alone," Marcus replied. He had dealt with drunk people many times before. Most of them were not dangerous, just confused and loud. Marcus started his patrol car and drove toward 2nd Street. As he drove, he thought about the call. Murphy's Tavern was owned by an old Irish man named Patrick Murphy. Patrick ran a good business and usually called the police only when he really needed help. If Patrick or one of his staff called about someone causing trouble, it was probably serious. The drive to Murphy's Tavern took Marcus through the heart of downtown Millbrook. Most of the shops were closed for the night. Only a few restaurants and bars were still open. The streetlights cast long shadows on the empty sidewalks. A few people walked along the streets, probably heading home from dinner or drinks. Marcus turned onto 2nd Street and saw Murphy's Tavern ahead. It was a brick building that had been there for over 50 years. The neon sign in the window flickered slightly, advertising different brands of beer. There were about 15 cars in the parking lot, which was normal for a Friday night. As Marcus pulled into the parking lot, he could see a group of people standing near the front door of the bar. They looked like they were watching something. Marcus parked his patrol car near the entrance and got out. He could hear someone shouting, but he could not see who it was yet. Marcus walked toward the group of people. As he got closer, he could see a man in a dark suit stumbling around near a black sedan. The man was clearly drunk. He was swaying back and forth and having trouble standing up straight. His suit looked expensive, but it was wrinkled and dirty. "Evening, folks. What's going on here?" Marcus asked the group of people who were watching. A young woman with blonde hair stepped forward. She looked scared. "That man has been yelling at everyone who tries to leave," she said, pointing at the drunk man. "He won't let us get to our car. We're afraid he might hurt someone." Marcus looked at the drunk man more carefully. He appeared to be in his 50s with gray hair that was messy and uncombed. His tie was loose and his shirt was untucked. The man was holding onto the side mirror of the black sedan to keep from falling down. "Has he hurt anyone or threatened anyone?" Marcus asked. "Not exactly," said a young man standing next to the blonde woman. "But he's been very aggressive. He called my girlfriend some bad names when we tried to walk past him, and he grabbed her arm when she tried to ignore him." Marcus nodded. This was clearly a situation that needed his attention. Public intoxication was against the law, and if the man was bothering other people, Marcus would need to do something about it. "Okay, I'll handle this. You folks can go ahead and leave if you want," Marcus said to the group. Marcus walked toward the drunk man. As he got closer, he could smell the alcohol. The man reeked of whiskey and beer. His eyes were bloodshot, and he was having trouble focusing on anything. "Sir, I'm Officer Rodriguez with the Millbrook Police. I need to talk to you," Marcus said in a calm, professional voice. The drunk man turned around slowly. He squinted at Marcus as if he was having trouble seeing clearly. "What do you want?" The man slurred. His words were hard to understand. "I've received a complaint that you're bothering other customers here. I need you to calm down and tell me what's going on," Marcus said. The drunk man laughed, but it was not a happy laugh. It was bitter and angry. "You don't know who you're talking to, do you?" he said, pointing a shaky finger at Marcus. "No, sir, I don't. But right now I need you to step away from these cars and calm down. You're scaring people, and that's not okay." The drunk man's face turned red with anger. "I own this town," he shouted. "You can't tell me what to do."
"I'll have your job."
Marcus had heard this kind of talk before from drunk people. They often claimed to be more important than they really were when they had been drinking. Sometimes they said they were lawyers or politicians or business owners. Most of the time, they were just regular people who had too much to drink. "Sir, I don't care who you think you are. Right now, you're drunk in public and bothering other people. That's against the law. I need you to cooperate with me so we can solve this problem peacefully." The drunk man stepped closer to Marcus. His breath smelled terrible, like he had been drinking for hours. "You listen to me, you little punk," he said, his voice getting louder. "I don't have to listen to you." "I don't have to listen to anyone." Marcus could see that this situation was getting worse. The man was becoming more aggressive, and there were still innocent people in the parking lot who could get hurt. Marcus knew he needed to take control of the situation before someone got injured. Marcus saw the punch coming just in time. The drunk man's fist moved slowly and clumsily through the air. Marcus ducked to the side, and the man's punch missed his face by several inches. The force of the missed punch made the drunk man spin around and almost fall down. Marcus's training kicked in immediately. When someone attacks a police officer, the officer has the right to defend himself. Marcus had been taught that he should use the minimum amount of force necessary to protect himself and others, but he also had the right to make sure he went home safely at the end of his shift. The drunk man tried to swing at Marcus again, but he was too intoxicated to be coordinated. His second punch was even wider than the first one. Marcus easily stepped out of the way. "Sir, stop resisting," Marcus shouted. "You're only making this worse for yourself." But the drunk man was not listening. The alcohol had taken away his ability to think clearly. All he knew was that he was angry, and he wanted to hurt the police officer who was trying to arrest him. The drunk man lunged forward, trying to grab Marcus around the waist. Marcus stepped to the side and tried to grab the man's arm to control him. But the drunk man was bigger than Marcus, probably about 6 feet tall and maybe 200 pounds. Even though he was drunk, he was still strong enough to be dangerous. Marcus could hear people shouting from the sidewalk. Some of them were telling the drunk man to stop. Others were encouraging Marcus to be careful. But Marcus could not pay attention to the crowd. He had to focus on the dangerous situation in front of him. The drunk man threw another wild punch. This time it was closer to hitting Marcus. Marcus felt the man's knuckles brush against his uniform shirt. If that punch had connected with his face, it could have broken his nose or knocked him unconscious. Marcus knew he had to end this quickly. The longer the fight went on, the more dangerous it became. The drunk man might hurt himself, or he might get lucky and hurt Marcus. Plus, there were other people in the parking lot who could get hurt if the fight moved in their direction. Marcus made a quick decision. As the drunk man threw his next punch, Marcus stepped forward and threw a short, controlled punch to the man's jaw. It was not a wild swing like the drunk man had been throwing. It was a precise defensive strike designed to stop the attack. The punch connected solidly. Marcus felt his knuckles hit the man's jaw with a solid thump. The drunk man's eyes went wide with surprise for just a moment. Then his knees buckled and he fell backward onto the asphalt of the parking lot. Marcus immediately knelt down next to the man to check on him. The man was unconscious, but he was still breathing. His pulse was strong and he did not appear to have any serious injuries. But Marcus knew that any time someone lost consciousness, it could be serious. Marcus reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 23. I need an ambulance at Murphy's Tavern on 2nd Street. I have an unconscious male who needs medical attention." "Copy that, Unit 23. Ambulance is on the way." "What's your status?" "I'm okay." The subject became combative during an arrest, and I had to use defensive force. "He's unconscious but breathing. I need backup when available. Unit 15 is finishing up their call and should be there in about 10 minutes. Marcus looked around the parking lot. Most of the people who had been watching were still there, and many of them had their phones out. He knew that videos of what just happened were probably already being uploaded to Facebook, Twitter, and other social media sites. A middle-aged woman approached Marcus carefully. She looked concerned. "Officer, is that man okay?" she asked. "He's breathing and his pulse is strong," Marcus replied. "The ambulance will be here soon to check him out properly." "I saw the whole thing," the woman said. "That man was completely out of control. He tried to hit you several times. You did what you had to do." Marcus nodded, but he did not feel good about what had happened. He had been a police officer for 5 years, and he had never had to punch anyone before. He had used his taser a few times, and he had wrestled with people who were resisting arrest, but he had never had to actually hit someone. Joe, the bartender from Murphy's Tavern, walked over to Marcus. "Officer, I want you to know that I saw everything too. That guy was way out of line. He was causing problems inside my bar, and then he came out here and caused more problems. You gave him every chance to cooperate." "I appreciate that," Marcus said. "Can you tell me exactly how much this man had to drink tonight?" "He was here for about 5 hours," Joe replied. "I'd say he had at least 10 or 12 drinks. Maybe more. He was buying rounds for other people too, so it was hard to keep track of exactly how much he had." Marcus made a note of this information. It would be important for his report. If the man had consumed that much alcohol, his blood alcohol level would be very high. That would help explain why he had been so combative and irrational. The sound of sirens filled the air as the ambulance approached. Marcus could also hear another police car coming. Backup was almost there. The ambulance pulled into the parking lot with its lights flashing. 2 paramedics got out and quickly walked over to where the unconscious man was lying. Marcus stood up to give them room to work. "What happened here?" asked the first paramedic, a woman in her 30s named Lisa. Marcus had worked with her before on other calls. Male in his 50s, heavily intoxicated, Marcus explained. "He became combative during an arrest attempt. I had to use defensive force and he lost consciousness. He's been out for about 3 minutes now." Lisa knelt down and began checking the man's vital signs. Her partner, a young man named Dave, started setting up their equipment. "His pulse is strong and regular," Lisa reported. "Breathing is normal. No obvious signs of serious head trauma, but we'll need to get him to the hospital for a full evaluation." Marcus felt a little relief hearing that the man seemed to be okay. The last thing he wanted was for someone to be seriously hurt, even someone who had attacked him. Unit 15 pulled into the parking lot just as the paramedics were loading the unconscious man onto a stretcher. Officer Jennifer Walsh got out of her patrol car and walked over to Marcus. "Hey Marcus, what happened here?" Jennifer asked. She and Marcus had been friends since they went through the police academy together. Marcus gave Jennifer a quick summary of what had happened. As he was talking, he noticed that the unconscious man was starting to wake up. The man's eyes fluttered open and he looked around in confusion. "Where am I?" the man mumbled. "What happened?" "Sir, you're okay," Lisa the paramedic said gently. "You're going to the hospital to get checked out. You hit your head when you fell. The man tried to sit up on the stretcher, but Lisa gently pushed him back down. Sir, you need to stay still. You may have a concussion. I don't need to go to any hospital, the man said, his words still slurred from the alcohol. Do you know who I am? Marcus and Jennifer looked at each other. Even after being knocked unconscious, the man was still claiming to be someone important. Sir, we'll worry about that later, Lisa said. Right now, we need to make sure you're not seriously injured. As the paramedics prepared to take the man to the hospital, Marcus realized he still did not know the man's name. In all the confusion, he had not had a chance to check the man's identification. Lisa, when you get to the hospital, can you let me know his name? Marcus asked. I'll need it for my report. Sure thing, Lisa replied. We'll call you once we get him registered. The ambulance drove away with its lights flashing but no siren. The man's injuries did not appear to be life-threatening, so there was no need for an emergency transport. Marcus and Jennifer spent the next hour talking to witnesses and taking statements. Everyone who had seen the incident agreed that the drunk man had been the aggressor. Several people mentioned that they had video of what happened on their phones. This should be pretty straightforward, Jennifer said as they finished up. You've got plenty of witnesses, and it sounds like some of them have video evidence. The guy was clearly drunk and disorderly, and he attacked you first. Marcus nodded, but he still felt uneasy about the whole situation. Something about the man's behavior bothered him. Most drunk people eventually calmed down when they realized they were dealing with the police. But this man had been different. He had acted like he really believed he was above the law. Marcus's radio crackled. Unit 23, this is dispatch. Unit 23 here, Marcus replied. The hospital is requesting that you come in to complete some paperwork. They also said they have some information for you about the subject you brought in. Copy that. I'm on my way. As Marcus drove to the hospital, he thought about how he would write his report. Everything had happened so fast that it was hard to remember every detail. But he knew that his report would be very important. Any time a police officer used force against someone, there would be an investigation. Marcus needed to make sure he documented everything accurately. Marcus had no idea that his life was about to change completely. He had no idea that the drunk man he had punched was not just some random troublemaker. And he definitely had no idea that by morning, he would be the most famous police officer in the state. Marcus arrived at Millbrook General Hospital about 30 minutes after the ambulance had brought in the drunk man. The hospital was quiet at this time of night. Only the emergency room was busy, and even that was not too crowded for a Friday night. Marcus walked up to the reception desk in the emergency room. The woman behind the desk was someone he had seen before during other police calls, but he did not know her name. Hi, I'm Officer Rodriguez. I brought in a patient about an hour ago. The dispatch said you needed me to come in for some paperwork. Oh yes, Officer Rodriguez. Let me get the nurse for you. She said she needed to talk to you about something important. The receptionist picked up the phone and made a quick call. Within a few minutes, a nurse named Carol came out to meet Marcus. Carol was in her 40s and had been working at the hospital for many years. Marcus had worked with her on several occasions when he had to bring in people who were injured or intoxicated. Hi, Marcus, Carol said, but her voice sounded strange. She looked nervous and worried about something. Hi, Carol, how's the patient doing? Is he okay? Carol looked around to make sure no one else was listening. Then she moved closer to Marcus and spoke in a quiet voice. Marcus, we need to talk privately. This is really serious. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Is he hurt badly? Did I hurt him worse than I thought? No, it's not that. He's going to be fine physically. He has a mild concussion, but nothing serious. It's something else. Carol led Marcus to a small office behind the reception desk. She closed the door and turned to face him. Her face was pale and she looked like she had seen a ghost. Marcus, do you know who that man is? The one you brought in? No, I never got his identification. He was too drunk and combative to cooperate. I was going to get his information from you guys. Why? Is he someone I should know? Carol took a deep breath. Marcus, that man is Mayor Thomas Whitfield. Marcus stared at Carol for a long moment. He was sure he had heard her wrong. What did you say? The man you arrested tonight is Mayor Thomas Whitfield, the mayor of Millbrook. Marcus felt like the room was spinning. This could not be true. The drunk, aggressive man who had tried to hit him was the mayor? The same mayor who had given him a commendation just 3 months ago for his work with the community youth program. Are you sure? Marcus asked weakly. I'm positive. I've lived in this town my whole life. I know what the mayor looks like, and his driver's license confirms it. Thomas Joseph Whitfield, age 52. He lives on Elm Street in the fancy part of town. Marcus sat down heavily in the chair next to Carol's desk. His mind was racing. He had just punched the mayor of his own town. The mayor was his boss's boss's boss. The mayor was the person who helped decide the police department's budget. The mayor could probably fire him if he wanted to. Oh God, Marcus said quietly. What have I done? Carol put her hand on Marcus's shoulder. Marcus, listen to me. You didn't know who he was. And from what I understand, he was drunk and he attacked you first. You were just doing your job. But I punched the mayor, Marcus said, his voice getting louder. I knocked out the mayor of the town. Shh, Carol said, looking toward the door. Keep your voice down. We don't want this getting out before you have a chance to talk to your superiors. Marcus tried to calm down, but his heart was beating fast. He thought about his career, his family, his future. He had worked so hard to become a good police officer.
He had never been in serious trouble before.
But now he had assaulted an elected official. Even if it was in self-defense, this could ruin his life. Carol, how bad is he hurt? Please tell me the truth. He has a mild concussion and some bruising on his jaw. The doctor said he'll be fine in a few days. But Marcus, there's something else you need to know. What now? When we took his blood for the medical tests, we also ran a blood alcohol test. Marcus, his blood alcohol level is 0.24. That's 3 times the legal limit for driving. Marcus felt a tiny bit of relief. At least there was proof that the mayor had been extremely drunk. That might help explain why he had been so aggressive and irrational. Has anyone else found out who he is? Marcus asked. The doctor knows, and so does the hospital security supervisor. But we've been trying to keep it quiet until you got here. The thing is, though, some of his staff members are already on their way here. His staff? Apparently, the mayor's wife called his office when he didn't come home tonight. His chief of staff called around to different hospitals and police stations looking for him. When they called here and described him, we had to tell them he was here. Marcus groaned. If the mayor's staff was coming, that meant this situation was about to get much more complicated. Politicians had lawyers and public relations people who knew how to handle situations like this. Marcus was just a regular police officer who had never dealt with anything like this before. When will they be here? Marcus asked. They said about 20 minutes. But Marcus, there's something else. The mayor is awake now and he's asking to talk to you. He wants to talk to me. What does he want to say? I don't know. But he seems different now. More sober. I think the shock of being in the hospital helped him realize what happened. Marcus stood up slowly. He knew he had to face this situation head on. Running away or hiding would only make things worse. He was a police officer and he had been doing his job. Even if the person he arrested turned out to be the mayor, he had still been doing the right thing. Okay, Marcus said. I'll talk to him. But I want you to be there as a witness to whatever he says. Of course, Carol agreed. They walked down the hallway toward the room where Mayor Whitfield was being treated. Marcus could see through the glass door that the mayor was sitting up in bed. He looked much different than he had in the parking lot. His hair was combed and someone had given him a hospital gown to replace his torn and dirty shirt. Marcus knocked on the door and entered the room. Mayor Whitfield looked up at him with tired, bloodshot eyes. For a moment, neither man said anything. Officer Rodriguez, the mayor said finally. His voice was hoarse, but he was speaking much more clearly than he had been earlier. Mr. Mayor, Marcus replied stiffly. I was told you wanted to speak with me. Mayor Whitfield nodded slowly. Yes, I did. Please sit down. Marcus remained standing. Sir, I should probably tell you that anything you say could be used in court. You might want to wait until you have a lawyer present. The mayor waved his hand dismissively. I don't need a lawyer right now. I need to apologize. Marcus was not expecting this. Sir, Officer Rodriguez, I remember most of what happened tonight. I was drunk, I was belligerent, and I attacked you. You were just doing your job, and I made it impossible for you to do it safely. Marcus did not know what to say. He had expected the mayor to be angry, to threaten him, to demand that he be fired. He had not expected an apology. Sir, I want you to know that I had no idea who you were, Marcus said. If you had known, would you have handled it differently? The mayor interrupted. Marcus thought about this question carefully. I would have tried harder to de-escalate the situation, sir. But if you had still attacked me, I would have had to defend myself. Mayor Whitfield nodded. That's the right answer. That's exactly what I would want any police officer in this town to say. The mayor paused and looked out the window. Officer Rodriguez, I have a drinking problem. I've had it for a long time and it's been getting worse. Tonight was probably the worst it's ever been. Marcus was not sure what to say to this confession. He was a police officer, not a counselor or a therapist. Sir, there are programs that can help with that, Marcus said awkwardly. Yes, I know, and I think tonight was the wake-up call I needed. The mayor looked back at Marcus. But right now, I'm more worried about you than I am about myself. Worried about me, sir? Officer Rodriguez, by tomorrow morning, this story is going to be all over the news. There are going to be reporters, politicians, and activists who want to make this into something bigger than it really is. Some of them will try to destroy your career to score political points. Marcus felt his stomach tighten again. He had been so focused on the immediate situation that he had not thought much about the media attention this might generate. What do you think I should do, sir? Tell the truth. Always tell the truth. You did nothing wrong tonight. You treated me exactly the same way you would treat any other drunk person who was causing problems. That's what a good police officer should do. Just then, there was a knock on the door. Carol stuck her head in. Excuse me, but there are several people here who say they work for the mayor's office. They're asking to see him immediately. The mayor sighed. Send them in. It's time to face the music. As Carol left to get the mayor's staff, Marcus turned to leave as well. Officer Rodriguez, the mayor called out. Yes, sir? Thank you for treating me like everyone else tonight. That took courage, even if you didn't know who I was at the time. Marcus nodded and left the room. As he walked down the hallway, he passed 3 people in expensive suits who were walking quickly toward the mayor's room. One of them, a woman with short blonde hair, gave Marcus a cold stare as she passed. Marcus knew that his problems were just beginning. Marcus woke up at 6:30 a.m. on Saturday morning to the sound of his phone ringing. He had only gotten about 3 hours of sleep after finishing his paperwork and reports from the previous night. He had hoped to sleep in a little bit, but apparently that was not going to happen. The caller ID showed his supervisor, Sergeant Thompson. Marcus knew this was not going to be good news. Hello, Sergeant, Marcus said, trying to sound more awake than he felt. Rodriguez, I need you to come in immediately, Sergeant Thompson said. His voice was tight and stressed. We have a situation. What kind of situation? The kind that involves the mayor, the media, and about 100 phone calls from politicians and reporters. How fast can you get here? Marcus looked at his clock. I can be there in 20 minutes. Make it 15. And Rodriguez? Don't talk to any reporters. Don't talk to anyone except me and Chief Williams. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Marcus hung up the phone and quickly got dressed. As he was getting ready, he turned on the local news to see if there was any coverage of what had happened last night. He did not have to wait long. The third story on the morning news was about him, our top story this morning. Millbrook police officer Marcus Rodriguez was involved in an altercation last night with Mayor Thomas Whitfield outside Murphy's Tavern. Cell phone video shows the officer punching the mayor, who was then taken to the hospital unconscious. Marcus watched in horror as shaky cell phone video played on the screen. The video started just as Marcus was approaching the mayor in the parking lot. It did not show the mayor pushing Marcus or trying to punch him. It only showed Marcus hitting the mayor and the mayor falling to the ground. The mayor was treated at Millbrook General Hospital for a concussion and was released early this morning. Mayor Whitfield's office has not yet commented on the incident, but City Council member Patricia Hayes called the officer's actions completely unacceptable. The news switched to a video of a woman Marcus recognized as one of the mayor's political opponents. She was standing outside City Hall with several microphones pointed at her. This is exactly the kind of police brutality that has become too common in our society, Patricia Hayes said to the cameras. No matter what happened last night, there is no excuse for a police officer to punch an elected official. Officer Rodriguez should be fired immediately. Marcus turned off the TV and finished getting dressed. He could already see that this was going to be much worse than he had imagined. The video made him look like the aggressor, and politicians were already using the incident to score points against the mayor and the police department. Marcus drove to the police station as quickly as he could. As he turned onto the street where the station was located, he could see several news vans parked outside. Reporters with cameras were standing around waiting for something to happen. Marcus parked in the employee parking lot behind the building and used the back entrance to avoid the reporters. But as he was walking toward the door, a reporter spotted him. "Officer Rodriguez! Officer Rodriguez! Can you comment on what happened last night?" Marcus kept walking without saying anything. More reporters started running toward him, shouting questions. "Officer Rodriguez, do you think you used excessive force? Are you going to apologize to the mayor? Should you be fired for assaulting an elected official?" Marcus made it inside the building without saying anything to the reporters. He walked quickly to Sergeant Thompson's office, where he found his supervisor waiting with Chief Williams and two other people he did not recognize. "Rodriguez, sit down," Chief Williams said. The chief was a serious man in his 50s who had been running the police department for over 10 years. Marcus had always respected him, but right now the chief looked very unhappy. "Chief, I can explain what happened," Marcus began. "I've read your report," the chief interrupted, "and I've talked to the witnesses. I know you were defending yourself, but right now, we have a bigger problem." One of the people Marcus did not recognize spoke up. She was a woman in her 40s wearing an expensive suit. "Officer Rodriguez, I'm Linda Patterson from the city's legal department. We need to discuss the situation you've created." "The situation I've created?" Marcus asked. "I was doing my job. The mayor was drunk and disorderly, and he attacked me." "That may be true," Linda Patterson replied, "but the public doesn't see it that way. They see a video of you punching the mayor, and by this afternoon that video will have been seen by millions of people." The other person Marcus did not recognize was a man in his 30s with a beard. "I'm Mike Stevens from the mayor's office," he said. "I'm here to help coordinate our response to this situation." Marcus was confused. "Why is someone from the mayor's office here? Shouldn't the mayor be pressing charges against me?" Mike Stevens shook his head. "The mayor is not pressing charges. In fact, he specifically asked me to make sure you understand that he doesn't blame you for what happened." "Then what's the problem?" Marcus asked. Chief Williams answered. "The problem is politics, Rodriguez. Half the city council wants you fired. The other half is defending you. The mayor's political opponents are using this to attack him, and every civil rights group in the state is calling for an investigation." Sergeant Thompson, who had been quiet until now, finally spoke up. "Marcus, I've known you for 5 years. You're a good cop, but this situation is bigger than just what happened in that parking lot last night." Linda Patterson opened a folder and pulled out several pieces of paper. "Officer Rodriguez, I need to inform you that there will be multiple investigations into this incident. The state police are conducting a criminal investigation to determine if you used excessive force. The city is conducting an administrative investigation to determine if you violated any department policies. And the state attorney general's office is conducting a civil rights investigation." Marcus felt overwhelmed. 3 investigations? For defending myself against a drunk person? For punching the mayor, Linda Patterson corrected. "In the eyes of the law, it doesn't matter that he was drunk. What matters is whether your use of force was justified under the circumstances." Chief Williams leaned forward. "Rodriguez, I'm putting you on administrative leave pending the outcome of these investigations. You'll still get paid, but you can't work as a police officer until this is resolved." "How long will that take?" Marcus asked. "Could be weeks, could be months," the chief replied. "It depends on how thorough the investigations are and what they find." Mike Stevens spoke up again. "Officer Rodriguez, I want you to know that the mayor plans to make a public statement this afternoon. He's going to explain that he was intoxicated and that you were doing your job. He hopes that will help calm things down." Marcus appreciated that the mayor was trying to help, but he could already see that this situation had taken on a life of its own. Politicians and activists were not going to let facts get in the way of a good story. "Is there anything else I need to know?" Marcus asked. Linda Patterson looked at her notes. "The FBI may also get involved if there's any indication that this was motivated by political reasons. And there's a possibility of federal civil rights charges." "Federal charges? For what?" "For depriving the mayor of his civil rights under color of law. It's a federal crime for a police officer to use excessive force, even against someone who's attacking them." Marcus could not believe what he was hearing. He had been a police officer for 5 years without any serious problems. He had always tried to do the right thing, and now he was facing the possibility of federal charges just for defending himself against a drunk person. Chief Williams stood up. "Rodriguez, go home. Stay away from reporters. Don't talk to anyone about this case except your lawyer. And get a lawyer. Today." As Marcus left the police station, he could see that even more reporters had arrived. There were now at least a dozen news vans parked outside, and reporters were doing live broadcasts for the morning news shows. Marcus managed to get to his car without being seen, but as he was driving home, his phone started ringing constantly. Reporters had somehow gotten his phone number and were calling to ask for interviews. When Marcus got home, he found more reporters waiting outside his apartment building. He parked in the garage and used the back stairs to get to his apartment without being seen. Once he was safely inside, Marcus turned on the TV to see what was being said about him. The story was now the lead item on every local news channel, and it was starting to appear on national news as well. On one channel, a legal expert was explaining why Marcus should be prosecuted. On another channel, a different expert was explaining why Marcus had done nothing wrong. Social media was exploding with opinions about the incident, most of them based on the incomplete cell phone video. Marcus's phone kept ringing. Finally, he turned it off and sat down on his couch. Less than 12 hours ago, he had been just another police officer doing his job. Now he was at the center of a political firestorm that could destroy his career and possibly send him to prison. Marcus thought about the mayor's words from the night before. Tell the truth. Always tell the truth. That was good advice. But Marcus was starting to realize that in politics, the truth was not always enough. By noon, the hashtag #MayorDown was trending on Twitter, and Marcus's life had changed forever. 3 days after the incident, Marcus found himself sitting in a small conference room at the state police headquarters. Across from him sat Detective Sarah Chen, a serious woman in her 40s who specialized in investigating police misconduct cases. Next to her was FBI agent Robert Miller, a tall man with gray hair who had driven down from the state capitol. Marcus's lawyer, David Goldman, sat beside him. David was an experienced criminal defense attorney who had handled several high-profile police cases. Marcus had hired him on the recommendation of the police union, which was paying for his legal fees. Officer Rodriguez, Detective Chen began, "This is a formal interview regarding the incident that occurred on Friday night at Murphy's Tavern. You understand that you're not under arrest, but anything you say can be used against you in court?" "Yes, ma'am," Marcus replied. "Tell us in your own words exactly what happened that night." Marcus had been over this story dozens of times in his head, but he knew he had to be careful. Every word he said would be analyzed and picked apart by investigators, lawyers, and politicians. "I received a call about a drunk and disorderly person at Murphy's Tavern," Marcus began. "When I arrived, I found a man who was clearly intoxicated, causing problems in the parking lot. He was bothering other customers and preventing them from leaving." Agent Miller interrupted. "Did you know who this person was when you arrived?" "No, sir. I had no idea he was the mayor. He was just a drunk man causing problems." "Continue," Detective Chen said. Marcus explained how he had tried to calm the situation down, how the mayor had become increasingly aggressive, and how the mayor had eventually attacked him. "The subject pushed me hard in the chest," Marcus continued. "Then he tried to punch me in the face. I dodged the first punch, but he kept trying to hit me. I felt I had no choice but to defend myself." "Why didn't you use your taser?" Agent Miller asked. Marcus had been expecting this question. "The subject was very close to me, and we were surrounded by cars and other people. If I had used the taser and it didn't work properly, or if the subject had fallen and hit his head on a car, he could have been seriously injured. A controlled punch seemed like the safer option." Detective Chen made notes as Marcus spoke. "Officer Rodriguez, let's talk about your training. Have you been trained in de-escalation techniques?" "Yes, ma'am. I receive training every year on how to calm down difficult situations without using force." "Do you feel you used all available de-escalation techniques before resorting to force?" Marcus thought carefully before answering. "I tried to reason with the subject for several minutes. I explained that he was breaking the law and asked him to cooperate. I gave him multiple opportunities to comply peacefully, but he was too intoxicated to listen to reason, and when he became violent, I had to protect myself." Agent Miller leaned forward. "Officer Rodriguez, some people have suggested that you might have been motivated by political reasons. Were you aware of Mayor Whitfield's political positions or policies?" "I don't pay much attention to local politics," Marcus replied honestly. "I knew who the mayor was, but I didn't know much about his policies or his political opponents. Politics had nothing to do with what happened that night." The interview continued for 2 hours. The investigators asked Marcus about his training. his experience, his personal life, and his political beliefs. They wanted to know if he had any grudges against the mayor or the city government. They asked about his use of force record and whether he had ever been accused of misconduct before. Through it all, David Goldman sat quietly, occasionally objecting when the questions became too personal or irrelevant. Marcus answered every question honestly, even when the answers might not help his case. After the interview, Marcus and David walked to David's car in the parking lot. "How do you think that went?" Marcus asked. "As well as could be expected," David replied. "You told the truth and your story is consistent with the witness statements and the physical evidence. But I have to warn you, Marcus, this investigation is going to take a long time, and it's going to get worse before it gets better." "What do you mean?" "The state police are just getting started. They're going to interview every witness, analyze all the video footage, and examine every piece of physical evidence. The FBI is looking into whether this was a civil rights violation, and the city is conducting its own internal investigation." As they drove back toward Millbrook, David explained what Marcus could expect in the coming weeks. "The state police investigation will probably take at least a month," David said. "They have to be extra thorough because this involves a high-profile elected official. The FBI investigation could take even longer, especially if they decide to present the case to a grand jury." "A grand jury?" Marcus asked. "You mean they might try to indict me?" "It's possible. Federal prosecutors take civil rights cases very seriously, especially cases involving police officers. Even if your actions were justified, they might still try to make a case that you used excessive force." Marcus stared out the window as they drove through downtown Millbrook. He could see reporters still camped outside the police station and City Hall. His life had become a circus, and he was the main attraction. "What about the mayor?" Marcus asked. "I thought he was going to help by explaining what really happened." "He tried," David replied. "Did you see his press conference yesterday?" Marcus shook his head. He had been avoiding the news because it was too depressing to watch. "The mayor held a press conference and explained that he was drunk and that you were doing your job. He said he didn't blame you and that he wasn't pressing charges. But it didn't matter. His political opponents just accused him of covering up for police brutality." David turned into the parking lot of a small restaurant where they had agreed to meet to discuss Marcus's case privately. "The problem," David continued as they sat down in a quiet booth, "is that this case has become about much more than what happened in that parking lot. It's become a symbol for people who are angry about police violence, government corruption, and social inequality." "But I didn't do anything wrong," Marcus protested. "I was defending myself against someone who attacked me." "I know that and you know that, but it doesn't matter anymore. This case is being decided in the court of public opinion, and public opinion is not based on facts. It's based on emotions and politics." David pulled out a thick folder and opened it on the table. "I've been analyzing all the evidence, and I think we have a strong case. The witness statements support your version of events. The mayor's blood alcohol level proves he was extremely drunk, and the video footage, while incomplete, shows that the mayor was acting aggressively." "Then why are you so worried?" Marcus asked. "Because even strong cases can be lost if the politics are bad enough, and the politics on this case are terrible." David showed Marcus several newspaper articles and printouts from social media. The headlines were not encouraging. "Cop punches mayor," "Police brutality in small town," "Officer attacks elected official." "The media coverage has been almost entirely negative," David explained. "The early reports focused on the fact that you punched the mayor, not on the fact that the mayor attacked you first. By the time the full story came out, most people had already made up their minds." Marcus read through some of the articles. Most of them mentioned that the mayor had been drinking, but they portrayed Marcus as an aggressive officer who had used excessive force against a harmless drunk person. "What about the witnesses?" Marcus asked. "They saw what really happened. I've interviewed several of them, and they're all willing to testify on your behalf. But witnesses can be unreliable, especially in high-pressure situations, and the defense will argue that they were biased in favor of the police." David closed the folder and looked directly at Marcus. "Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Is there anything about that night that you haven't told me? Anything that might come out during the investigation?" Marcus thought carefully. "No, I've told you everything. I used the minimum amount of force necessary to defend myself and stop the threat. I followed my training and department policy." "Good. because if there are any surprises during this investigation, they could destroy our case. David explained that the next few weeks would be crucial. The investigators would be interviewing witnesses, analyzing video footage, and consulting with use-of-force experts. Marcus would not be allowed to work as a police officer during this time, but he would continue to receive his salary. "What should I do while I'm waiting?" Marcus asked. "Stay out of the public eye. Don't talk to reporters. Don't post anything on social media. And try to stay positive. This is going to be a long process, but I believe the truth will come out eventually." As Marcus drove home that evening, he thought about how much his life had changed in just a few days. A week ago, he had been a respected police officer with a clean record and a bright future. Now he was the subject of multiple investigations and a national news story. Marcus's phone had been ringing constantly with interview requests from reporters, but he had followed his lawyer's advice and refused to talk to any of them. He had also received hundreds of messages on social media, most of them negative. 2 weeks into the investigation, Detective Sarah Chen was sitting at her desk reviewing security footage from Murphy's Tavern when she noticed something that changed everything. The bar's security cameras had been recording all evening, and the footage showed much more than the brief cell phone videos that had been circulating on social media. Detective Chen had already watched the parking lot footage several times, but this time she decided to review the indoor cameras as well. What she saw made her immediately call her supervisor. "Lieutenant, you need to see this," she said into the phone. "I think we've been missing a big part of the story." An hour later, Detective Chen was showing the footage to Lieutenant James Morrison and FBI agent Robert Miller. The three investigators sat in a dark conference room watching the security footage on a large screen. "This starts at about 8 p.m., Detective Chen explained as she started the video. "Watch the man in the dark suit at the bar." On the screen, they could see Mayor Whitfield sitting at the bar. He appeared to be sober and well-dressed. He was talking to the bartender and seemed to be in a good mood. "Now watch what happens over the next few hours," Detective Chen said as she fast-forwarded the video. The footage showed Mayor Whitfield drinking steadily throughout the evening. But more importantly, it showed his behavior becoming increasingly inappropriate as he consumed more alcohol. At 9:30 p.m., the mayor could be seen approaching a young woman who was sitting alone at a table. The woman clearly looked uncomfortable as the mayor talked to her. When her boyfriend returned from the bathroom, the mayor reluctantly went back to the bar. At 10:15 p.m., the mayor approached 2 different women who were having drinks together. One of them shook her head and turned away from him. The other one stood up and moved to a different table. "This is the important part," Detective Chen said as she slowed down the video. At 11:02 p.m., the footage showed the mayor grabbing a waitress by the arm as she was trying to serve drinks to another table. The waitress clearly pulled away from him and looked upset. She immediately went to talk to the bartender, Joe. The video showed Joe walking over to the mayor and having what appeared to be a serious conversation with him. The mayor became agitated and started pointing his finger at Joe. Other customers began to notice the commotion. Finally, at 11:20 p.m., the video showed Joe pointing toward the door and clearly telling the mayor to leave. The mayor became angry and knocked over his bar stool as he stood up. He appeared to be shouting, although there was no sound on the security footage. "Lieutenant, this completely changes the context of what happened outside," Detective Chen said. "Officer Rodriguez didn't just encounter a random drunk person. He encountered someone who had been sexually harassing women and causing problems for over an hour." Agent Miller nodded. "This explains why the bartender was so quick to call the police. The mayor wasn't just drunk and disorderly. He was being predatory." Lieutenant Morrison made notes as they continued watching the footage. "What else have you found?" Detective Chen opened another file. "I've been interviewing the female customers who were in the bar that night. 3 of them have confirmed that the mayor made unwelcome advances toward them. One of them said he touched her inappropriately when she tried to walk past him." "Did any of them file complaints?" Agent Miller asked. "No, none of them did. They said they were embarrassed and just wanted to forget about it. But they're all willing to testify about what happened if necessary." The investigators continued reviewing the evidence that had been gathered over the past 2 weeks. In addition to the security footage, they had interviewed 15 witnesses, analyzed the mayor's blood alcohol levels, and consulted with 3 different use-of-force experts. "What did the use-of-force experts conclude?" Lieutenant Morrison asked. Detective Chen pulled out another report. All three experts agreed that Officer Rodriguez's actions were justified under the circumstances. They said that given the mayor's size, his level of intoxication, and the fact that he had already attacked the officer, the punch was a reasonable and controlled response. Agent Miller had been reviewing the witness statements. The witnesses all tell the same story. The mayor was aggressive and combative. Officer Rodriguez tried multiple times to de-escalate the situation. The mayor threw the first punch, and Officer Rodriguez defended himself. "What about the cell phone videos that started this whole controversy?" Lieutenant Morrison asked. "That's the problem," Detective Chen replied. "The videos that went viral only showed the end of the encounter. They didn't show the mayor pushing the officer or trying to punch him. By the time people started recording, they only saw Officer Rodriguez hitting the mayor." The three investigators sat quietly for a moment, considering the implications of what they had discovered. So we have a situation where an intoxicated elected official sexually harassed multiple women, became combative when asked to leave a bar, and then attacked a police officer who was trying to arrest him, Lieutenant Morrison summarized. "That's correct," Detective Chen confirmed, "and the police officer used minimal force to defend himself and end the threat." Agent Miller closed his file. "Based on this evidence, I don't see any basis for federal civil rights charges. Officer Rodriguez was clearly acting in self-defense, and there's no evidence that he was motivated by political bias or racial animus." "I agree," Detective Chen said. "In fact, I think Officer Rodriguez showed remarkable restraint. A less experienced officer might have used much more force in the same situation." Lieutenant Morrison stood up. "I'll call the district attorney and brief him on our findings. But I think it's safe to say that Officer Rodriguez is not going to face criminal charges." While the investigators were reviewing the evidence, another development was taking place across town. An investigative reporter named Jennifer Walsh had been digging into Mayor Whitfield's background, and what she found was troubling. Jennifer had been covering local politics for 10 years, and she had always found Mayor Whitfield to be professional and competent. But after the incident with Officer Rodriguez, she started hearing rumors about the mayor's drinking problem. Jennifer began interviewing people who had worked with the mayor over the past few years. What she discovered was a pattern of increasingly erratic behavior that had been carefully hidden from the public. A former city employee told Jennifer that the mayor had shown up drunk to several important meetings. A local business owner said the mayor had made inappropriate comments to his female employees during a city event. A member of the mayor's own staff admitted that they had been covering up the mayor's drinking problem for months. "We were scared," the staff member told Jennifer on condition of anonymity. "We knew he had a problem, but he was the mayor. We didn't know what to do." Jennifer also discovered that this was not the first time the mayor had been involved in an alcohol-related incident. 6 months earlier, he had been involved in a minor car accident after a city council meeting. The police report had been quietly buried, and the mayor had claimed he was simply tired. 3 months before the incident with Officer Rodriguez, the mayor had been asked to leave a restaurant after becoming loud and disruptive during a dinner with city contractors. Again, the incident had been covered up by his staff. Jennifer's investigation revealed that Mayor Whitfield's drinking problem had been getting progressively worse over the past year. His staff had been working overtime to hide his condition from the public and the media. "The night he was arrested was not an isolated incident," Jennifer wrote in her article. "It was the culmination of a pattern of behavior that had been building for months." When Jennifer's article was published, it completely changed the public perception of the case. Instead of focusing on Officer Rodriguez's actions, people began to focus on Mayor Whitfield's behavior and the cover-up by his staff. The mayor's political opponents, who had initially criticized Officer Rodriguez, suddenly found themselves in an awkward position. It was hard to condemn the police officer when the mayor had clearly been the one behaving inappropriately. Patricia Hayes, the city council member who had initially called for Officer Rodriguez to be fired, issued a new statement. "While I still believe that police officers should use minimal force in all situations, it's clear that Officer Rodriguez was faced with a difficult situation and responded appropriately. The police union, which had been defending Officer Rodriguez from the beginning, felt vindicated by the new evidence. We said from day one that Officer Rodriguez was a good cop who was just doing his job," said Union President Michael Torres. "Now we have proof that he showed remarkable professionalism and restraint in a very challenging situation." Mayor Whitfield, who had been mostly quiet since his initial apology, finally decided to address the new revelations. He called a press conference for the following day, and rumors began to circulate that he was going to make a major announcement. As word of the investigation's findings began to leak out, public opinion started to shift in favor of Officer Rodriguez. The hashtag #MayorDown was replaced by Support Officer Rodriguez. People who had initially condemned the officer began to apologize and express support for him. But for Marcus Rodriguez, who was still on administrative leave, the vindication felt bittersweet. 3 weeks after the incident at Murphy's Tavern, District Attorney Rebecca Martinez stood behind a podium in the courthouse press room. Behind her sat Detective Sarah Chen, FBI Agent Robert Miller, and Chief Williams. The room was packed with reporters who had been following the case since it began. After a thorough investigation by the state police and the FBI, District Attorney Martinez began, "We have concluded that Officer Marcus Rodriguez acted appropriately and within the scope of his authority on the night of the incident. No criminal charges will be filed against Officer Rodriguez." The room erupted with questions from reporters. But District Attorney Martinez continued with her statement. "The evidence clearly shows that Mayor Whitfield was highly intoxicated and became combative when Officer Rodriguez attempted to arrest him for public intoxication and disorderly conduct. The mayor pushed Officer Rodriguez and attempted to strike him multiple times before Officer Rodriguez defended himself with minimal force." She paused and looked directly into the cameras. Officer Rodriguez showed remarkable restraint and professionalism in a difficult situation. His actions were justified and appropriate under the circumstances. Detective Chen stepped forward to provide additional details about the investigation. She explained how the security footage had revealed the full context of what happened that night, including the mayor's inappropriate behavior toward female customers inside the bar. Officer Rodriguez was not responding to a simple case of public intoxication, Detective Chen explained. He was responding to a situation involving someone who had been sexually harassing women and causing problems for hours. When Officer Rodriguez arrived, the subject was preventing other people from leaving the parking lot and becoming increasingly aggressive. FBI Agent Miller also spoke briefly, confirming that the federal investigation had found no evidence of civil rights violations or excessive force. Officer Rodriguez treated Mayor Whitfield exactly as he would have treated any other citizen in the same circumstances, Agent Miller said. There is no evidence that political considerations played any role in his actions. While the press conference was taking place, Marcus Rodriguez was sitting in Chief Williams's office watching it on television. Next to him sat his lawyer, David Goldman, and Sergeant Thompson. "How do you feel?" David asked as the press conference ended. Marcus took a deep breath. Relieved, vindicated, but also changed. Chief Williams turned off the television and faced Marcus. "Rodriguez, I want you to know that the department is proud of how you handled this situation. You did everything right, and you maintained your professionalism even when the whole world was watching." "Thank you, Chief," Marcus replied. "When can I come back to work?" "Immediately, if you want to. But I want you to take some time off first. This has been a stressful few weeks and you deserve a break." Marcus nodded. The past 3 weeks had been the most difficult of his life. Even though he had been cleared of all charges, the stress and uncertainty had taken a toll on him. That afternoon, Mayor Whitfield held his own press conference. He looked tired and much older than he had just a month earlier. His wife stood beside him along with his chief of staff and a few other supporters. "I want to begin by apologizing to Officer Rodriguez," Mayor Whitfield said. "He was doing his job that night and I made his job much more difficult than it needed to be. He showed professionalism and restraint, and he deserves our respect and gratitude." The mayor paused and looked down at his prepared statement. "I also want to apologize to the citizens of Millbrook, to my family, and to everyone who has been affected by my behavior. I have a drinking problem, and it has affected my judgment and my ability to serve as mayor." Mayor Whitfield announced that he would not